Hello, everyone. Today we'll be talking about Assassin's Creed 3 and the significance of the game itself and how it impacts culturally, the cultural aspects of the game. And it's by me, Brendan Kwok. So, a little backstory of Assassin's Creed 3. It's part of the Assassin's Creed franchise. The game came out on October 30th, 2012, and it is a third person game set during the Revolutionary War. And the reason why we're going to analyze this is because it brings me to my next point. So, because this game is somewhat historically accurate, uh, my thesis is Assassin's Creed is about getting people to learn more about history in a more interesting way. You will unleash your lethal skills in a violent quest that will take you from chaotic city streets to blood soaked battlefields in the hostile American wilderness and beyond. You will meet legendary heroes of American history, and together you will conspire to annihilate those that threaten liberty itself. And this quote is from the Ubisoft website, and kind of gives a brief description of the game. So these are my supporting elements of my main element: time and setting of the game, historical figures and their role within the game, and missions and quests. So time and setting. The year's in the late 1700s, and that is around the time of the Revolutionary War. And basically, uh, not only the time, the setting. I mean, you can just kind of look at this picture. What they wore, the clothing, the weapons itself, and the trees and the terrain is basically how it looked back then, or what we know is what it looked back then, from science and from history itself. Um, and this just gives us the game itself is kind of interesting in like knowing this. It helps us visualize how history was back then, and it makes us want to learn even more. I mean, it definitely made me want to learn more about American history. So, historical representation. There's a lot of known historical figures in the game, like George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, and General Putnam. With these figures, they actually kind of help you throughout the game while you're helping them. They with like them in the game help you, or it gives a better understanding of what the mission was, and you're trying to help them during these missions that were actually in the history books to this day, like the Delaware River. On top of that, there's many other things like how Paul Revere warned the British are coming, which I'll talk about next. But it's just the the representation of these figures in the game really helps bring out the interesting part about American history and how we first began. So, missions and quests. Many of the missions pertain to how the Revolutionary War went. So, Paul Revere and the British are coming. So, you actually go with Paul Revere to warn houses that the British are coming and getting them ready to fight, which was a huge turning point in the American Revolution. Then there's a British Tea Party, which upsets the British, of course, by throwing all their tea in the sea. And you're actually part of that too. The Redcoats, the representation of the redcoats within the game is also really accurate into how we perceived it in the history books as well. And then there's also the Battle of Monmouth, which is you're actually a part of itself, and it's really cool to see how it all played out or what the game wanted it to play out. But overall, they're all pretty accurate in terms of what we learned so far, and makes us want to learn more about these events. So, interpretation. My interpretation that encourages players to learn more about American history itself. Uh, and it kind of teaches you about the social structure of hierarchy from the British and how they worked, from the king all the way down to the slaves that were in America itself. How we were basically controlled by the British back then, and as the in the American Revolution, we wanted to stop that. Um, and then the culture within the game itself is the culture of the American Revolution, the culture of the American way, and how it first began and how we are today is because of them back then. So we learn from that culture itself. It gives a better understanding and a fun way of learning American history. You're basically playing in the Revolutionary War. It gives you more in-depth feeling that you are part of it, which makes it more fun itself. Well, I know it's a little bit of fantasy because no one actually knows if there was an assassin in a hood down there, but it's really accurate in learning these types of battles and the people that fought in it. So the critical analysis that I have is the details of the battle. The details itself, the lining up of the shots, how they would go rows and rows of reloading and things like that is in there as well. And it's just the fact that they were able to get these events historically correct while also adding in assassins into the timeline, which you play, and the Templars itself. So, evaluation. I think this game is really interesting. This was the first Assassin's Creed that I actually ever played, and it got me into the series. And it also got me into going into AP US History, which, in fact, I did get a 5 on the essay or on the AP exam. So, yeah. The ability to showcase history, historic American history, while intertwining the assassins. The ability that they have to intertwine these assassins while having the player learn more about American history and wanting to know more is really cool. The portrayal of historical figures and their part in the American Revolution. So you're interacting with these NPCs, and at the same time you're helping them help you, you know, build what America is today, and allowing players to dive deeper into American history and make it more interesting rather than just sitting in a classroom reading a book. So, like I said, you're immersed in the American Revolution rather than reading it out of the book. And it just gives you a better understanding and more of an imagination of what really happened, which draws subjects even um, closer to the reader and slash player. So my conclusion. The game Assassin's Creed 3 gives a great perception and twist of what American Revolution was like in the late 1700s. When a player goes through the gameplay that is Assassin's Creed 3, they will gain a better understanding and feeling of American history and will ultimately want to learn more about what happened that made America today. With the settings, the missions, and the historical NPCs that you communicate with within the game itself allows players to learn more about history while parkouring through Lexington and Boston. But yeah, thank you. And this is my bibliography.